What if I told you that life is present all over the solar system, not just on Earth? You would tell me that I'm wrong, which is true, but thanks to the help of our imagination, we can make our dreams a reality. In the stories I'll be covering today, we will be exploring imaginative life in our solar system, specifically Frank R. Paul's universe. The people behind the stories are the mentioned Frank R. Paul in collaboration with Raymond A. Palmer and James B. Settles. Frank R. Paul was a well-known artist in the 20th century, being called the father of science fiction illustrators. His work was mostly of alien worlds, robots, the future, and anything in between. Paul's work is almost dreamlike, made of vibrant colors and abstract imagery. Raymond A. Palmer is the writer of these stories, under the aliases of Morris J. Steele and Henry Gade. Palmer is one of the spearheads in science fiction writing. He was the main editor for Amazing Stories and Fantastic Adventures, the two biggest science fiction publications at the time. His legacy is mixed, some people saying he didn't have an impact on science fiction, some saying he did. But we are talking about him 86 years later, so he definitely made an impact on the genre. Last but not least is James B. Settles. Settles is a lesser known artist on the project. There's not a lot of information on him, but he illustrated back covers for Amazing Stories during the 1940s. Settles' artwork was more grounded, using monotone colors. Now that we got that out of the way, let's put on our copper spacesuits and set off on a voyage through the solar system. Our journey starts on Callisto. Callisto is the second largest moon of Jupiter and the third largest moon of our solar system. Callisto has a diameter of about 2,900 miles, orbiting Jupiter from around 1,170,000 miles away. Being the outmost moon, it takes about 17 Earth days for the moon to orbit Jupiter. Since Callisto is far from the sun, it gets a little light, but the moon has some type of inner heating that keeps it warm, most likely the intensive volcanic activity on the surface. Callisto's atmosphere is rich in oxygen. It is thin, but just dense enough to support an abundance of flora and fauna. Callisto's rotation affects the temperature of the moon drastically. The surface temperature can be high thanks to solar heat and Jupiter's heat, or can drop down to a colder climate when facing away from the sun. Because of this, there's no rain on Callisto. For this expedition to Callisto, we are equipped with weighted shoes to walk on the moon's low-gravity surface and an airtight copper spacesuit, since it's unknown if the atmosphere is harmful to humans. As we land on the surface, we see a volcano erupting, billowing flames and smoke. We find that the lowlands of the moon are covered in lush jungles, while hot springs and geysers are scattered across the surface. As we continue, we come across a small city consisting of tall buildings made of basalt and lava rocks. As we move into the city, we meet the makers, these being the Callistonians. The Callistonians are 8 feet tall, completely covered in blue, lizard-like scales. They have thick white hair covering their head, chest, and back, having an arboreal primate look. Callistonians have 4 arms, tentacular in nature, using these arms to climb the tall trees of the jungles. This species is oviparous, laying eggs. Their eggs are placed in hot springs of the world for warmth. When they hatch, the creatures go through a tadpole-like development stage. Callistonians are highly intelligent and quite friendly despite their harsh world. Past this settlement is the city of Serenade. Serenade is built on a lake, surrounded by scenic mountains and rocky gorges. The volcanic activity under the lake heats the valley to a comfortable temperature. Serenade is similar to our earthly Venice. Not only is it built in the same aquatic environment, it has art and customs that mimic Venice's picturesque and charming nature. The structures of the city are built on the lake and on the surrounding cliffs. Their dwellings are made of marble and colorful stones. The structures of Serenade mimic Roman, Greek, and Florinate architecture, but with a unique Callistonian twist. Travel is done by walking or in small boats made of giant gourds. Despite them having tentacle-like arms and living in a floating city, they can barely swim. A huge fountain lies in the middle of the city, being a mineral artesian well. The well erupts occasionally, supplying the lake with fresh water. Most other lakes on the moon are stagnant. This one is kept clean thanks to its geyser. The vegetation around the valley consists of semi-tropic trees, ferns, and the previously mentioned giant gourds. The people of Serenade harvest the gourds by first cutting the gourds from its anchorage. They then let the fruit roll down the valley into the water. Callistonians then use the gourds like boats and row them all the way back to the city. The gourds are then used for boats and food. The gourds are filled with a green edible pulp and nut-like seeds that the Callistonians eat. The Callistonians are lovers of music. They all are experts at singing and yodeling, using the narrow valleys as giant megaphones, allowing their echoing voice to be heard for miles and miles. War is foreign to these Callistonians. They live with each other in complete peace. Callisto has oceans on its surface. They are blue and made of H2O, surrounded by cliffs of aluminum. Since there is no wind on the moon, the water is always calm. Callistonian ships resemble ancient Roman vessels, besides having an enclosed part in the back. A small tower resides in the middle, made only to carry a 40-foot-long flag. The pennant marks the port where it came from, the destination, and any other information. The keel and ribs of the ship are made of a rare wood. Over the ribs is a lighter wood made from underwater trees, this being a type of seaweed. The wood makes the ship very light and buoyant. 4 large oars are fixed to the ship, 2 on each side. Slaves would operate the paddles by way of ropes. The boats had no steering wheel. The vessel is moved and directed by the oars alone. The cabin at the back of the ship is used for living quarters, while the slaves are kept under the ship. The homes can house up to 50 passengers at a time. The vessel is about 120 feet long and 58 feet tall, having an average speed of 12 miles per hour. We will now be venturing to the next moon of Jupiter, Europa. Europa is the smallest and closest of Jupiter's 4 moons, having a diameter of just 1,940 miles. The moon orbits Jupiter from about 417,000 miles away. The terrain of Europa is quite hectic. Flatlands are a rarity. Volcanic activity is not too common though compared to its sister moons, but thanks to the intensity of the Jupiterian system, deep ravines open, spewing hot molten from the core. There is little vegetation on the surface due to Europa's large array of seasons, bringing varying weather conditions. Adding to this, lack of moisture on Europa's surface leads to no rainfall. The only plant life that can be found lives in the desert areas of the moon. The atmosphere of Europa is surprisingly clean, having little impurities in it. Humans might be able to breathe the air for a short while, but we will still wear a spacesuit. We also wear weighted shoes, since the gravity is weaker on Europa. A person can easily jump 50 feet with no issues. Life on Europa looks much different from how it does back at home. Europeans stand 3 to 4 feet tall. Their bodies are light and fragile. Europeans have many characteristics of insects. They have tough, chitinous shells to protect them from the environment, as well as arms and legs that are adapted to climb and navigate jagged cliffs. Europeans have enormous lungs, making their bodies look like barrels. Their ears open to catch sound waves in the air. They fold down when not in use. The eyelids of these creatures are made of chitin. This is to protect the eyes from the harsh conditions of Europa. Thanks to the low gravity of the moon, the Europeans can construct massive buildings made of lava rocks. The cities are small, being made in the deserts of Europa. The settlements don't have many civilians, only having around 100 per city. The cities are solely dependent on cultivation, farmers only growing completely edible crops. The plants are protected by crystal cups to prevent evaporation or any toxic gases from getting in. The water that irrigates these plants is brought up from rich aquifers by crystal pipes, since there is no moisture on the surface. The farmers of Europa are in a constant battle with local animal life, mostly giant lizards trying to eat the crops. We are currently on the outskirts of Ore. As we move closer, we see it in full. The city is made of transparent plastic instead of traditional lava rocks. The civilians of this city use two types of giant bugs as their form of transportation. One being a giant centipede-like creature that can hold multiple passengers, and a mosquito-like creature that the Europeans can fly on. A giant hive lies on top of the city, where all the bugs call home. In the sky, we see an airship fly by, this ship being a dual dirigible. I'll give a simple breakdown what a dirigible is. A dirigible is an aircraft that uses gases that are lighter than the surrounding air to fly. An example of a dirigible would be a Zeppelin. The aircraft is sturdy, made of plastic that is as strong as steel but lighter than aluminum. This plastic can take extreme punishment and will not dent. The plastic is made in big sheets that is then cut and shaped, finally being welded together to make one complete piece. Two envelopes are on each side of the craft, filled with gas. Thanks to a system of bulkheads, the air bubbles can still function even if one has a leak or puncture in it. The steering of the ship is controlled by outer fins and rudders. This allows the aircraft to make impossible movements while keeping the ride smooth. When the ship makes a turn, it skids, then evens out. The ship is powered by electrical, static, and electromagnetic energy from Europa. The ship's plastic produces static energy when against the wind. This energy transfers to the motors in the center of the ship. The energy is then converted to magnetic energy, which is then transferred into metallic plates at the base of the ship, making it an electromagnet. The magnetic energy produced by the motors is the same as the moon's current pull. This energy is then used as a sail while the fins and rudders guide the ship. Think of it like a compass. The needle of the compass is attracted to the north and south poles. The ship functions the same way. The energy produced pushes the ship towards the north, south, or any direction. Or in simpler terms, the craft will ride the magnetic currents of Europa like how a boat will ride the wind. This process can be reversed by feeding the power into the opposite intake and then reversing the field of force from the coils that magnetize the plates. Stay with me here, we're getting into some crazy territory. Regardless, the ship that is described here is just a passenger aircraft, having two compartments for the crew and another for the passengers. The aircraft is around 125 feet long, being on the smaller side of European ships. The Europeans use other giant ships that are also dual dirigibles, made for carrying massive loads of cargo instead of passengers. Europa has no seas and a rocky landscape, so flying is the best way of transportation. Radio compasses guide the pilots, each city having a directional guide beam, sending radio waves on a defined waveband. When a ship reaches its destination, the landing is automated. Europa was quite a harsh world, but now we'll be traveling to a much calmer world in the Jupiterian system, Ganymede. Ganymede is Jupiter's largest moon and the largest moon in our solar system. The diameter of Ganymede is 3,273 miles, making it larger than Mercury. It orbits Jupiter from around 665,000 miles away. It takes 7 days for the moon to make a complete orbit around Jupiter. The moon is tidal locked, meaning that one side of Ganymede is always facing Jupiter. Ganymede's climate is warm. The average temperature is around 50 degrees. The surface of the moon is covered with continents and oceans. No polar caps are found. Due to its proximity to Jupiter, the moon is under constant gravitational stress, causing the moon to have a good amount of volcanic and seismic activity. Before we land on Ganymede, we put on our weighted boots to walk since gravity is low. A human can jump around 22 feet here. We also remove our helmets since we can breathe the air without issues. The terrain of Ganymede is very similar to Earth, being rich in soil, rock formations, water, and so forth. The surface is mostly flat, having a few hills and even fewer mountains. As we cross the countryside, we see purple hills in the distance, made of crystal. Dwellings are on the cliffs and at the base. They are dome-shaped, made of clay and fiber. In the corner of our eye, we see a group of Ganymedians approaching us, riding giant reptiles, spears in hand. The Ganymedians are orange felines. They have the most resemblance to humans out of any species in the solar system, looking like a cat-human hybrid. They have slanted green eyes, pointed ears, a flat nose, red lips, and white fangs. The group only consists of females, as they use the males as slaves. Surprisingly, the Ganymedians are not hostile to us. This is probably due to there being no other animal life besides small insects and the mentioned lizards on the moon. The Ganymedians are curious creatures and even affectionate like earthly house cats. They communicate with a musical language with occasional meows and purrs. As we pass the felines, we make our way to our main destination, the city of Gatos. The city is made in an ancient crater, one of the many that exist on the moon. The metallic city is powered by radioactive, magnetic, and static electricity from the red spot of Jupiter. The main part of the city is at the bottom of the crater, while the more luxurious homes are at the rim of the crater and on the surrounding cliffs. The Ganymedians use a massive electrical pole to power the city, having a disc-shaped object on top. The disc is made of radioactive ore with a high selenium content. The disc absorbs the rays from the red spot and transfers this energy to condensers, that then pour the concentrated energy into batteries down below. The energy is then used to power the whole city. 10 million kilowatts are stored in the batteries. They can be refueled in one rotation around Jupiter. Ganymede is filled with low crystal cliffs, making gliders the most practical means of transportation. The gravity of Ganymede is 1/4 of Earth, so a Ganymedian glider is quite large, ranging from 300 feet long for a passenger ship to 1,000 feet long for a cargo ship. The gliders are launched from catapults on cliff faces. They would fly for hundreds of miles with no issues. The bigger ones can even circle the whole moon in one flight. The gliders are torpedo-shaped, possessing 2 massive wings on each side and rudders on the rear for steering. On the nose of the ship is a chain of smaller wings. Pilots can lift and lower the nose to slow down, to make dives, or brake. Runners are present on both wings to aid with landing on cliffs or desert runways. The aircraft is made of wood and fibers plants, while hardwood makes up the fuselage. We leave Ganymede, venturing to another moon of Jupiter, Io. Io is the closest and second smallest moon of Jupiter. Io has a diameter of 2,260 miles, making it a little larger than our moon. Io orbits 262,000 miles away from Jupiter, but this can vary due to the forces of Europa and Ganymede pushing on the small moon. It takes Io around 1.5 days to make a complete orbit around Jupiter. A spacesuit is necessary. It is impossible for a human to withstand the atmosphere of the moon. We are also equipped with weighted shoes for the light gravity and mountain climbers to travel the harsh terrain. The landscape of Io is a rugged desert, covered in rock formations and fruit-bearing cacti, while mountain ranges line the horizon. Io is a cold world, being minus 60 degrees. Since Io is far from the sun, Jupiter gives the moon most of its light. As we step out of our ship, a group of furry creatures greets us, named the Ionians. The Ionians are small, furry people, having shell coverings over their heads and transparent liquid over their eyes to protect them from the cold. Ionians have long clawed hands to aid in climbing, or to simply pluck a fruit from a cactus. Ionians have a large lung capacity that makes them capable of breathing the air. Close to our landing area is a crimson dome made of ruby. It is used as a skylight by the Ionians. As we look into the dome, we see a city that is completely made out of giant crystals of silicone coated with solid diamond, emerald, and ruby that would make a Minecraft player even blush. The crystals sparkle in the light of the red spot and the yellow of Jupiter. We find that the Ionians are friendly. They take us down into their city, named Crystallis. As we make our way in, we find it is completely air-conditioned. The city is 700 feet tall and expands far past our view. The Ionians are quite advanced, harnessing energy from the red spot of Jupiter by way of radio towers set up on the surface. The towers absorb any rays coming from the red spot, siphoning them down into the city. This gives Ionians infinite heat, light, power, and energy for cultivation. Giant crystal pillars as tall as skyscrapers hold the ceiling up, the Ionians living in them. On the glass floor of the city are masses of Ionians waddling around. Since the Ionians are friendly to outsiders, they are willing to trade. For exchange of a 10-pound diamond on one of the pillars, they get iron pyrites, pencils, wax, and anything else that we could find laying around. They accept, since those items are non-existent on their world. As we know, Io is a wasteland of mountains and desert, so the Ionians use air travel to get around. They do have a system of underground roads, but they aren't as effective as their airships. The domes previously mentioned also serve as hangars for these aircrafts. Elevators lift and lower the shuttles into the city. The aircraft has a slim, torpedo-shaped body, being 200 feet long. The wings of the ship are short and stubby. Smaller wings and rocket tubes help with the movement, stability, and overall strength of the aircraft. The rocket tubes are attached to the wings, and steering is controlled mostly by motors. Ionian ships use atomic and steam power, specifically a combination of uranium-235 and water. Uranium and water are common on Io, making them the only practical form of fuel. The ship operates on water that is then broken down by uranium into steam. The steam then powers the motors on the craft. Water is stored in 4 tanks, 2 in the back, 2 in the front. The water doesn't have to be replenished often. The ship can go around the moon a few times before being refueled. Water tanks also add needed weight to the craft. The tanks are used as the aircraft's sole braking system. When the aircraft approaches its destination, water is diverted from the rear tanks to the wings and body, giving balance to the craft. If the ship has to do an emergency landing, the water tanks will keep the tail down, allowing the ship to glide into the sand or snow. While gliding at low altitude, the water can be diverted into one tank at a time for precise turning. So, if the pilot wanted to make a left turn, they would put water in the front left tank so the whole ship leans that way. We now leave the crystallized world of Io to explore the planets these moons orbit. Jupiter. Jupiter is the largest planet in our solar system. It is the 5th farthest planet from our Sun. Jupiter has a diameter of 88,846 miles and orbits 484 million miles away from the Sun. It takes Jupiter 12 years to make a complete orbit. Jupiter is a warm planet, very similar to Earth, besides having a reddish-orange sky. The atmosphere of Jupiter is toxic to most life, so before we leave our spaceship, we need our suits and a pair of gravity neutralizers, since the gravity pull here is strong. We would weigh around 600 pounds on the planet. The natives of this world are big centaur-like creatures, having tremendous strength despite their skinny arms. The creatures have 4 small stubby legs, moving in dual motion. Jupiterians are covered in thick hide, while heavy plates make up their undersides. The organisms have sharp teeth that allow them to eat wood, tough fibers, and any other animal life on the planet. As we continue, we find ourselves in the capital city of Kiriki. Kiriki is an odd city, but one of the most stunning in all of the solar system. It is built in the crater of a massive extinct volcano. Thousands of small modest houses, parks, and trees dot the landscape. The the homes themselves being arranged in a row, coming from the center building. In the center of the city is the biggest building, shaped like a Jupiterian. It is in honor of a scientist named Kuroki, who the city is named after. Kuroki discovered how to harness power from the core of Jupiter, providing heat and light. This was a crucial discovery since Jupiter is far from the sun. Jupiterians look at Kuroki as a deity. His memory is seen all over the planet. The structure stands 300 feet in height, 300 feet long, and 100 feet wide, mostly consisting of apartments. There are no stairs in the building. It would be too hard for a Jupiterian to get up them. Instead, they have ramps and super speed elevators. The statue is holding a giant energy well that powers the city. The surface of the city is covered in these tubes, giving power, light, and heat to civilians. No streets are present. The Jupiterians walk on the grass freely, but they prefer to take the electric trains of the city. We take one of these trains to a power well. Surrounding the well are factories and powerhouses. Impressive machinery was inside them. It's amazing that these creatures can construct such advanced technology. Jupiter has huge oceans made of oil, or some other type of gluey liquid. Normal ships would not be able to move in this type of fluid, so the Jupiterians had to get creative. The hull of the ship is made of smooth metal to make it easier to cut through the oil. The bottom of the ship looks like a sled, so it can slide over the surface instead of moving through it. But since the surface is sticky, the ship will need a propelling system. The mechanism the Jupiterians came up with are simple revolving screws that are located on each side of the vessel, motors powering them. The screws would either grip the surface to move or dig into the liquid to stop. The gravitational pull of Jupiter is so strong, you can't have too big of a ship, it won't be able to move, or too small of a ship, it won't be able to move cargo. Jupiterian vessels have to be medium-sized. The ship is around 250 feet long and weighs around 18,000 tons. Despite this size, it can only carry 1/3 of what a small earthly freighter can. The vessel sails at an average speed of 7 miles per hour. Long voyages are commonplace, taking a few months to complete. Oceans are rare on Jupiter, so it's calm sailing all the way. If a storm does happen, the ship just has to ride it out. If the vessel gets knocked off its course by the winds, it is to shut off one screw, letting the other serve as an anchor, so it can angle the vessel back on course. Small propellers at the narrowest part of the stern help move the ship inch by inch back into place. You thought Jupiter was a hostile world. Now we will be going to the most hostile world in our solar system, Mercury. Mercury is the smallest planet in our solar system, having a diameter of 3,030 miles. Mercury orbits the Sun from around 36 million miles away, being the closest planet to it. It takes the small planet 59 days to make a complete orbit. We first take a look at ancient Mercury before it became a wasteland. Ancient Mercury had oceans covering it, made of 50% water and 50% acid. The atmosphere is poisonous to humans, the chemicals making the sky appear reddish-orange. The land is made of quartz, crystals, mica, asbestos, and so forth. Mercury is a land of great winds, thanks to its proximity to the sun. The Mercurians would take advantage of this, making sailboats. The hulls of their ship are made of acid-resistant crystals held together by tar. The tar was harvested from natural wells, made of vegetation from the short plant era of Mercury. Coal is not present on the planet, since the planet goes through rapid cooling periods. Coal, if anything, is gooey peat, but this substance was still useful for the previously mentioned acid-proof seal. A stone mast was fixed to the deck, with large sails made of a mica-like substance, half an inch thick. They were fitted on the mast by way of small dents. The sails can be opened or folded up for any desired speed. The hull was equipped with outriggers on each side to prevent capsizing. The vessel rode on top of the water, like the Jupiterian ship. Most of the boat's travel was done in narrow rocky channels, so the draft, the part of the ship that's underwater, was very small. The vessel was also light, making it agile. The ships carried a crew of 30 and up to 100 passengers, or 25 tons of cargo. Since some of Mercury's oceans were frozen due to slow rotation, the ship was designed to move on ice like a sled. The vessel would be their sole form of transportation, moving at 25 miles per hour. But now we find a hostile wasteland. Before we step foot on the surface, we equip a heavily insulated suit to protect against the heat, radiation, and noxious gases. The oceans of Mercury are long gone. The surface is now devoid of any liquid. Temperatures on the planet are extremely hot, reaching 540 degrees, while the atmosphere is toxic to most forms of life. Because of this, Mercurians now make their homes underground. Mercurians are insect-like creatures, covered in insulated armored plates to withstand extreme heat, cold, and ultraviolet light. Mercurians are heavy, thanks to their armor. Nevertheless, they are agile, leaping across the surface like grasshoppers. The species mainly eat nut-like fruit, heat-resistant to the blazing sun. Our landing zone is near the city of Mu. The city is underground, made in the crater of an extinct volcano. Crystals make up the city, mined from the walls of the cavern. The crystals themselves are chemically mixed with iron, copper, and nickel. This causes the crystals to retain the original hues, making a city of color. Homes line the edge of the crater, stacked on top of each other. A giant building is in the center, made of many mini compartments, while a giant sphere is present on top. Water is now a scarcity on the planet, the Mercurians making it their most prized substance. Quartz tanks are on the city floor to store, catch, and preserve water. They are tightly sealed to prevent any forms of evaporation. The only source of water is condensation formed at the crater's base due to the rapid temperature change. The surface of Mercury is so harsh, the only form of travel is through underground tunnels. The Mercurians use giant mirrors, basically solar panels, on the surface to power steam engines that would then make electrical energy. This energy is stored in batteries far below the surface. Our next destination leads us to the far reaches of the solar system, Pluto. Pluto is a dwarf planet on the edge of our solar system. It has a diameter of 1,476 miles. The small planet orbits the Sun from around 3.7 billion miles away. It takes Pluto 248 years to make a complete orbit. As we break through the atmosphere, we see ancient cities long abandoned, spanning hundreds of miles. Modern Plutonians now live underground in only 3 cities. Life on the surface is impossible thanks to the freezing environment and toxic air. The surface air is pure oxygen, which is harmful to most life. It lacks the needed hydrogen and nitrogen for the Plutonians to survive. So, we'll need a suit to protect against the cold in the atmosphere. We will also be carrying oxygen tanks so we can breathe. The residents of this world are bat-like creatures, standing 3 to 4 feet tall, covered in heavy fur. The wings of these organisms are made of a membrane impervious to the cold. Plutonians eat tiny rodents, mosses, rocks, and even other Plutonians. This species is hostile to outsiders, attacking anything that gets too close to their machinery. As we explore more, we find an old elevator that takes us down to the city of Profundo. The elevator uses some type of anti-gravity power. As we reach the bottom, we step out into a massive cavern of connected caves. In the center of the cave is a round pit with a tower rising from it. The structure has the look of a beehive with hundreds of openings all over its surface. This tower is where the wealthy Plutonians live. On the walls of the cave are housing, with balls of glowing energy fixed on top of each. The spheres give off heat and light. A subway system was even present in the Subterranean city. The center tower is connected to the surface, pumping oxygen down into the cavern, mixing it with the needed chemicals to make it breathable. The Plutonians inherited this science and tech. They don't know how to replicate it, only knowing how to operate it. Many underground cities existed, but fell to ruin since they didn't know how to repair the damages to the machines. While we are observing the city, a group of Plutonians attack, but our suits are able to protect against their claws. We are taken prisoner and put on trial. We can't understand what they're saying, but we are definitely guilty. The Plutonians sentence us to death, which is sending us to the surface. But we have our spacesuits on, so we will be fine in the end. Walking to our space shuttle, we hear a faint hum coming from above. An airship flies by. The Plutonians still use ancient aircraft made by their ancestors. This craft uses the electromagnetic energy of the planet to equal the electromagnetic charges produced by the angular flat wings of the craft. This allows the ship to float at any height. The aircraft is basically repelling off the planet. It's like when you put two magnets together of the same pole against each other. They repel. The ship and the planet are essentially doing the same thing. The ship does this by using electronic coils that produce the polarity in the magnets, allowing the plane to change its electrical flow from north or south depending on Pluto's magnetic pole, or its tack in another direction. The steering of the ship is controlled by rudders and tail flaps. The tail flaps are also capable of the electromagnetic process. Rare gases in the atmosphere help with descension and ascending. The ship is medium-sized, only being 150 feet long and 130 feet wide. Passengers and cargo are stored in the middle cabin, under the wings. The underside, tail, and hull is made of an electromagnetically charged metal. Energy reversing elements are present in the center of the cabin, controlled by a simple system of buttons. A compass is hooked to the electromagnetic coils, making the directions of the ship perfect. The vessel could achieve great speeds, crossing the world in a short time. To slow down from this high speed, the craft uses the planet's magnetic field as brakes. The ship can be used in space, but can only go around 10,000 miles out. The only danger present is the chance for an electric storm to screw up the inner workings of the craft, rendering it useless. Plutonian ships are held in hangars on cliff faces, passengers and pilots getting to these hangars from elevators deep below the ground. We now travel to the farthest planet from the sun, the watery world of Neptune. Neptune is the farthest planet from the sun, being the fourth largest in our solar system. The planet has a diameter of 30,775 miles. It orbits the sun from around 2.8 billion miles away. It takes around 164 years for Neptune to make a complete orbit. Neptune has a toxic atmosphere, crushing air pressure, and poisonous gas all over. So, we must wear a suit to protect against this. As we step foot on Neptune, we see dark water, islands of colorful crystal, and mossy fungus-like growths. The sky is filled with heavy clouds, and the temperature is cold. But suddenly, floating balls of phosphorescent flames whiz by, almost hitting us. These could be very dangerous to any visitors. We see splashing in the nearby water. Then, from the depths, a small organism emerges. Neptunians are amphibious lizard-like creatures, having thick hide that makes up their body. They are capable of filtering the toxic gas from the atmosphere into breathable air. The species is cold-blooded, laying eggs. They leave their eggs near the many geysers for warmth. Specialized suction cups are found on their hands, feet, and bellies. This lets them navigate the rocky cliffs and caves of Neptune. Neptunians mostly eat mossy growths, with occasional fish. These creatures call home to the massive caverns under the planet's surface. We spot a deep tunnel not too far from the ship. The tunnel was smooth and moist. The end of the tunnel opens to a massive cavern. This cavern is home to the city of Serenade, the biggest underground city on Neptune. The cavern was filled with a collection of rocks, stalagmites, and stalactites, made of pure metal. The formations were covered in small bubbles made of copper. These were the homes of the Neptunians. But suddenly, a deep roar fills the cavern. A subterranean volcano is erupting, shaking the whole cave. The volcano spits liquid copper from its cone, polluting the air with cyanide smoke. The copper homes didn't move during this event, since they are welded to the stony metal. Neptunians make their homes by first making molds out of metallic dust and water. They then move the molds to the neighboring volcano. When the volcano goes off, it fills the molds with molten copper. They let the copper cool and roll the home back to the city. It takes around 20 to 30 Neptunians to do so. There is little soil deep in Neptune's crust, so the Neptunians use this little soil to grow strange-looking mushrooms for food that are poisonous to humans. The Neptunians we find here are friendly to outsiders. They are willing to trade items with us. We give them mirrors, beads, and junk taken from the dead cities of Pluto. They give us gold and platinum in exchange. Before we leave, we spot a submarine emerging from the depths. The Neptunians had to face a lot of problems in construction of this vessel. Neptune's oceans have extreme pressure and swift currents. There's also a lack of fuel on Neptune, and a lack of vegetation prevents the making of coal or oil. But life finds a way. The hull is made of the toughest metal on the planet. It is 6 feet thick to reduce as much pressure as possible. The vessel is shaped like a large teardrop, with lines dividing the different sections of the ship. The craft has a length of 250 feet and a height of 90 feet. Portholes appear in rows on the side of the vessel. The portholes are watertight, made of metal and treated with selenium. They are made transparent under the effects of electrical waves. The discs are about 4 inches thick. Steering of the vessel is controlled with rudders and a propulsion apparatus. Despite being large, the submersible is agile, ascending and descending quickly. The propulsion uses compressed air, shot from jets arranged in a circle on the tail of the vessel. If the craft wanted to change direction, it would turn the jets off on the opposite side, then make the turn. The air is not stored in the ship, rather forced into the jets by a swift process of electrolyzation of the seawater itself. The water of Neptune is high in hydrogen, making it easier to break down into gaseous elements. These elements would then expand, producing great pressure, propelling the ship forward. The ships possess vents for seawater to flow through. The vents are equipped with rotary wheels to siphon water power. The power is then piped into batteries. This electrical energy powers the jets and energizes the water around it. All of this allows the submarine to go up to 55 miles per hour with unlimited fuel. Underwater travel on Neptune is dangerous due to the planet's dark oceans. Since the planet is far from the sun, little light reaches its surface, less light reaches its oceans. So, the Neptunians place beams of light to mark their routes, like a highway with lampposts. Neptune was quite an interesting planet, but now we'll be going to one of the most interesting planets in our solar system, Saturn. Saturn is the second largest and sixth planet from the Sun. It has a diameter of 72,367 miles. The planet orbits the Sun for around 886 million miles away. It takes Saturn 29 years to make a complete orbit. We need a suit to traverse the surface. The air is toxic and the environment is harsh. As we step foot on Saturn, we find that the terrain is inchoate. Earthquakes, land shifts, and volcanic eruptions are commonplace. Since Saturn is far from the Sun, little light reaches the planet, making it a cold world. But the internal heat of the planet warms the surface just enough for it not to freeze. We are surrounded by a swampy region, filled with weedy growths and bulbous gas-filled objects. We soon find the protectors of these objects, the Saturnians. The Saturnians are spider-like creatures, having round, egg-shaped bodies and gaseous interiors. Walking is done by way of 4 skinny, spidery legs. This helps with navigation on the rough, icy terrain. 4 octopus-like tentacles serve as arms for these creatures. They are simple yet effective, mostly being used for plucking fruit, building, carrying, and so forth. When the arms are folded, they can serve as a protective shield against the weather. Saturnians have small lumps for heads. having less developed brains than humans. The lumps also serve as a sensory organ. They detect changes in temperature, so if something approaches a Saturnian, it would be able to detect it if it gave off heat, like infrared in a way. Since the atmosphere of Saturn is poisonous, the Saturnians have a special membrane for filtering toxic gas. The species lay their eggs in the water. They lay millions at a time. The eggs will float until they hatch. Saturnians come out of the eggs swimming creatures, later growing into land dwellers. Only a few hundred eggs will hatch, while only a few dozen will become full adults. Since most of the surface is uninhabitable, life thrives near volcanoes. Vegetation would be abundant here with the help of geysers. We travel to one of these hotspots, the city of Chrysium, built in the crater of the largest volcano. The buildings are made of red metal that lines the granite edge. The city has no skyscrapers, only durable dwellings low to the ground that can withstand earthquakes and debris falling on them. The interior of these buildings are just simple tunnels that lead to underground dens. Oxygen and heat would seep from the core into these pockets. The Saturnians might breathe this heated oxygen before going out to the surface. The center of the crater is a designated area for cultivation. The Saturnians growing peanut-like tubers, this being the only food they eat. The food is broken down by some type of gas or acid breakdown within their body. Power plants power the city, built on top of massive fumaroles. The gases from the vents would spin fins inside the plants, generating power. This is the Saturnians' most advanced technology. After this discovery, we get back into our spaceship and travel to one of Saturn's moons, Titan. Titan is Saturn's largest moon and the second largest moon in our solar system, having a diameter of around 3,200 miles. Titan orbits Saturn for around 759,000 miles. It takes 15 days for the moon to make a complete orbit around the planet. The atmosphere is heavy in nitrogen, but also rich in oxygen. No helmet will be needed, but we still need our weighted boots. Titan's gravity is low, a human can jump 22 feet here. The air of Titan is warm and quite comfortable. Since Titan is far from the sun, it gets a third of the light we do, but thanks to Saturn reflecting sunlight onto the surface, it gets the needed light and some, making the nights of Titan even brighter than Earth. We first set our eyes on the city of Oro. Massive skyscrapers make up the skyline. This is possible thanks to the low gravity of the moon. Most of the buildings are at least 200 stories tall. The buildings serve multiple purposes, being homes, factories, and places of worship. Metal is much more common on Titan than Earth. All the structures here are made of gold, copper, nickel, and a metal similar to orichalcum. The Titanians call home to this city. The species have 2 arms and 2 legs. They have winding, flexible arms that look like cables. Titanians are insect-like. They have slim, wasp-like bodies. Their waist and chest are similar to the thorax of an ant. Titanians are religious, worshipping Saturn as a deity. The top of their skyscrapers are temples. Fire spews from the dome, left on constantly as a form of worship. Titan is volcanic, so the Titanians use this to their advantage. Volcanoes serve as their sole source of power and heating. No water is present on Titan. Water power is unknown to them. Food is grown on the cliffs of the volcanoes, being a wide array of mushrooms. The mushrooms grow quickly thanks to the light of Saturn and the heat of the volcanoes. The crops are harvested by hand and carried in small baskets back to their settlements. Electrical and radio technology does not exist on Titan. The static electricity of Saturn's rings interfere with any incoming currents. We leave this warm golden metropolis, venturing to the cold plain of Uranus. Uranus is the 7th planet from the Sun, having a diameter of 31,518 miles. Uranus orbits the Sun from around 1.8 billion miles away. It takes 84 years for the planet to make a complete orbit. Uranus's atmosphere is thick, consisting of predominantly toxic gases. The surface of the planet is mostly liquid, being sea green in color, frozen over by the lack of sun. Some land areas are present, made of aluminum, bismuth, and so forth. As we land on the planet, we find that this is one of the harshest environments in the solar system. Constant storms, freezing temperatures, deep snow, and unbreathable air makes the surface uninhabitable. Our spacesuits are 100% required. We will also bring gravity neutralizers, since the gravity pull here is strong. Lastly, we are equipped with a blaster, since we see metal domes all over the area. One of these domes suddenly opens. Small robotic creatures emerge, known as the Uranians. Despite their environment, Uranians are small, delicate creatures, similar to ferrets. Uranians are covered in green fur, being partially amphibious, even having a set of gills. Uranians have short, webbed feet and hands for easier movement in the water. The creatures are entombed in robotic exoskeletons, the suits covering their whole bodies. The legs of the suits are equipped with small wheels that are attached to the feet. The wheels are electric while being highly magnetic. Uranians spend almost all their time in their suits, but not all Uranian suits are equal. Different suits are used for different tasks. As we descend into the tubes, we see a city made of metal, surrounded by a sunken sea. The sea is warm, heated by Uranus's core. The water melts the ice on the surface occasionally, allowing steam to escape. That is why we see snow on the surface. The Uranians thrive in water, having a diet of seaweed, fish, and jellyfish. Uranians lay their eggs in floating weeds. Tadpoles will emerge from the eggs, later developing into full-sized Uranians. Our next location is the major city of Metallis. Like the other settlement, we enter through a trapdoor poking through the surface. We travel 5 miles down on pneumatic cars. As we enter the city, we find that it is made only of metal and glass, harvested from deep underground fire pits. Enormous wells are dug down to the magma core. Any desired metal can be found here in its purest form. Little to no smelting is needed. The city has a vast open space in the middle. Factories, living spaces, and laboratories coat the walls, and winding metal ramps are used as roads. Each floor has an unbreakable glass walkway. Uranians skate on this glass at high speeds. Since the air of Uranus is toxic, the Uranians create artificial plants to provide breathable air. Heating and ventilation columns are also present in the center of the city. The towers keep the settlement at a constant temperature to prevent the expansion and contraction of the metal, while robots make the city spotless, cleaning debris and dust. The metropolis is lit up by radium lights. The radium is not only used for light, it also breaks down several elements into the radiation necessary for good health within the species, mainly being ultraviolet, infrared, and other radioactive waves. Unlike the other settlement, outside the city walls are fiery caverns that look like hell itself. A group of Uranians follow us to the surface. We wonder why, since they never go up here. The group leads us to a hangar in the distance, full of extraterrestrial ships. The only time the Uranians will go to the surface is for the use of their aircraft. Not just any aircraft, one that can be used as a submarine. The craft uses jet propulsion as its main source of movement, since it can be used in the air and water. Uranian ships are made of sleek metal with a bullet shape 80 feet in length. In the front of the ship is a sharp nose surrounded by a circular duct. The duct cone is 9 feet in diameter. Air first enters the duct where the propeller is located. The air next goes into the main compressor, this being an aero motor. Using an internal combustion turbine, the air is then released through a series of ducts at the tail. The air is carried through several compressors in total. The pilots of the ship have complete control over the ducts, opening and closing them when needed. When in the sea, the motor will convert water into steam. One fin is on each side of the ship, making 4 in total. They act as jet tubes, allowing steering of the vessel, while also stabilizing the ship. Rudders and directional gears are absent. On each fin is a small replica of the jet motor. The motors provide slow descension when moving into underwater ports. Air and water taken in from the front doubles as a compression ratio. This allows the aircraft to achieve extremely fast speed, moving 150 miles per hour in water and 800 miles per hour in the air. Uranian crafts must fly low since the atmosphere is so dense. The aircrafts have a weight of 100,000 tons despite their small size, but this is due to the extreme gravity of Uranus. Uranian ships are mostly utilized for carrying cargo. We will now be traveling to a much more peaceful world, Venus. Venus is the second planet from the Sun, having a diameter of 7,521 miles. The planet orbits the Sun from around 67 million miles away. It takes Venus 225 days to orbit the Sun. One Venus day is actually longer than a Venus year, taking 243 days. As we approach the planet, we can't see any of the surface. Broad clouds envelop the whole atmosphere. Sun will rarely touch the world. As we break through the clouds, we find that Venus is a water world. 90% of its surface is liquid, with terrain similar to Earth. We are hit with light, calming rain flying through the magnificent orange-yellow sky. As we fly across the planet, we pass many islands that local fauna and flora call home. We approach a mountain range rising from the sea, surrounded by coral reefs covered in vegetation. Connected to the mountains is a tropical continent filled with life. On this landmass lies a marvelous city. The settlement's dwellings are scattered across the land and cliffs, having fungus-capped roofs with colorful exteriors. We land our ship here. A suit is not required since the conditions on Venus are just like Earth. We spot the civilians of this city, approaching us on the back of pterodactyls. We find that the civilians are friendly creatures named the Venetians. Venetians are semi-aquatic organisms, taller than humans, having long arms and short, stocky legs. Under their arms are flaps. Their hands and feet are webbed to help with swimming. Natives move around the city on the previously mentioned pterodactyls, as well as giant amphibious reptiles that look like plesiosauruses. The reptiles act like ferries, carrying Venetians around the city. Venetians are omnivores, eating plants and meat. Food is hunted by the pterodactyls at the top of the mountains, and crops are grown in the water. In the distance, we see a massive boat coming in from the infinite ocean, the Venetians' magnum opus. Since Venus is a watery world, boats are one of the most effective ways of traveling. Venetians construct massive wooden vessels since there is no metal on the world. Despite the ship's size, it is light. The hull is made of thick planks, light as cork but as strong as pine. The ship has a wide bottom made for stone ballets that are under the deck. The rocks provide stability to the ship. Because the vessel is made of planks, an outrigger bar surrounds the hull made of springy, steel-like wood. The outrigger's purpose is to prevent any debris from damaging the hull. The vessel steers with the aid of rudders located on each side of the vessel. This makes the ship slow with clumsy steering. No motors are in the ship. It relies solely on a sail for propulsion. Winds are powerful but steady on Venus. The sail is one of its kind. It is shaped like a window blind. The sail functions the same way, opening to let wind flow or closing to prevent it. This allows the vessel to go faster or slower if needed. The sail is never lifted or lowered. It is always upright. Stars are invisible on Venus, so sailors will use the wind's movements and temperature changes as guides. Extreme change in weather or temperature can be a sign of a storm. The Venetians will avoid these areas. The Venetians also use primitive aircraft. Like their ships, the craft is made of light, durable wood, while animal hide makes up the exterior. Since Venus's atmosphere is so dense, some planets evolved to be hollow, filled with gases that are lighter than air. The gases prevent the plants from sinking into the water. The craft is made of these plants, making it the main way it flies. 2 massive wings are on each side of the craft. They flap just like avian wings. The wings are operated by Venetians rowing oars in the middle. Steering is done by one rudder. Pilots control this sole rudder with cables situated on top of the aircraft's head. For descension, the crew will stop moving the wings, letting the ship glide down into the sea. The boat would be more preferred, since the craft can only go 5 miles per hour. It is mostly used when traveling over swampy areas where boats can't sail and Venetians can't swim. The craft floats at medium height, being a few hundred feet. If an accident occurs, it rarely will be fatal. The aircraft will just slowly float down. But, like the ship, if the aircraft goes near an area of high winds, it will collapse under the pressure. We now go to the final planet on this expedition, Earth's sister planet, Mars. Mars is the 4th planet from the Sun and the 2nd smallest in our solar system. The planet has a diameter of 4,212 miles. The planet orbits the Sun for around 142 million miles. It takes 687 days for the planet to make a complete orbit. Breaking through the atmosphere, we find a red desert surface covered in canals. Water used to be only found on 2 poles, but they have long melted. This created canals in which life can thrive around. We spot a canal surrounded by vegetation. It spans far past our view. Small buildings line the edge, 2 to 10 stories in height. Next to the structures are plots of land for cultivation. Cacti are also grown in the neighboring desert. As we follow the canal, small boats and high-speed aircraft pass us by. We eventually come across a tower with a golden glowing orb on top in the middle of the canal. Its purpose is to provide light and heat. Since Mars is a cold planet, the canals would freeze without the aid of the tower's light. The globe harnesses energy from the sun like a giant solar panel. Finally, we come across the city we've been looking for. The city is built in an intersection of branching canals. The giant sphere tower is present in the middle, bigger than the previous ones. Tubes carrying trains go in and out of the structure. We land our ship in one of the Martians' spaceports. Before we get out, we need to equip a glass helmet since we can't breathe the air, amplifiers to pick up sound vibrations, an oxygen tank, oxygen purifiers, and rockets to help with movement in the low gravity of Mars, and lastly an insulated suit to protect against the cold. As we leave our spaceship, we are approached by the civilians of this city. The Martians are a strange species. They are taller than us, having huge chests caused by lung development, their chests being covered in fur. Martians have skinny legs and arms. The ends of their legs are dish-shaped suction cups. Their heads have retractable eyes and noses to shield against the cold. Giant ears are on both sides of their head to catch sound waves, and massive antennas on top. They serve as extrasensory communication organs. Martians are equipped with a suit impervious to the cold, synthetic water and food pellets located on a belt around their waists, and an atomic weapon to fend off any intruders. Martians don't look at us as enemies. They are peaceful, giving us a handshake as a friendly gesture. Next to our ship are Martian aircrafts. The crafts are shaped like a teardrop, having a pointed tail and a less sharp nose. The craft uses atomic rocket motors located in the middle. The motors break down atoms of uranium-235 with the use of water, turning it into a form of steam and propelling this mixture from jet tubes on both sides of the ship. This allows the craft to be extremely agile, achieving a speed of 10,000 miles per hour. Small fins and rudders help steer the ship, but most of its controls are automatic, besides a set of buttons. The craft has a directional apparatus. It is a very complicated piece of equipment, electromagnetically correcting the ship through the course of the route. Pneumatic seats are used to absorb the shock of takeoff, while compressed air flows through the cabin to keep the pressure the same as Mars' surface, since the atmosphere of Mars is super thin. The crafts can be used for space travel as well. It could travel to the 2 moons orbiting Mars no problem. The ship's speed would be too great for gravity to affect it in time. The reason the crafts can't reach Earth is due to the lack of water fuel that can be carried. As we walk along the canal, we see a decommissioned warship from a millennium ago. Mars used to be a planet of great seas before it became a desert wasteland. Massive naval battles were fought on them before the people had to unite. Martian warships are vessels of destruction, being 1,000 feet tall from top to bottom and 1,500 feet wide. The bridge of the ship is manned by 100 Martians, controlling the movements of the vessel. The most complex piece of equipment in the bridge is a dome VC screen, connected to a tall mast in which 2 stereoscopics feed color images down to a screen, working as a periscope. When the vessel spots an enemy, the stereoscopes will feed a 3D image to the bridge. This gives the ship the exact distance it is from the enemy. This information is relayed to the gun tower. The gun on top of the tower is otherworldly. It is a giant electronic gravity gun. As it locks in on the target, it fires a silent beam of energy as fast as light. Once the beam hits the ship, it transfers around 20 million electrons into the vessel, that quickly turns into heat. The surrounding water turns into steam, causing a massive explosion on the side of the craft. A second shot is fired in the newly made hull, causing another explosion. The energy of this beam comes from an atomic generator in the hull. The generator breaks down seawater into atomic electron energy, storing it in batteries. The ship houses around 10,000 crew members. All of them live, eat, and sleep on the vessel. Our time on Mars is done. We head into our spaceship on course back to Earth, knowing what our solar system has been hiding from us for millions of years. In a way, we rediscovered the lost worlds. Wow, this journey was a trip. The universe of Frank R. Paul is a unique take on our solar system and alien life in general. When most people picture aliens, they just think of humanoid greys. I always loved it when artists and writers picture them as something totally different, just totally otherworldly. One more thing, I forgot to include this in the beginning, but I highly recommend you check out Raymond A. Palmer's writing, Frank R. Paul's artwork, and James P. Settle's artwork. They're really cool. If you really love science fiction, you'll really love the artwork and the writing that these men have created. I highly recommend you guys check that out after this video. Well, the video's over, so check it out now. I don't really have anything else to say, so I'll make this short and sweet. Thank you guys so much for watching till the end. I'll see you guys in the next one.